definitely a lot of changes in within. So
that's one of the best things in life is you don't know where you're going to be next year.
Or next week.
Right?
Very much so. And I was
Or just like this, where bada boom, bada bing, we are live on a Tuesday night for Triple T, number 85. The funny part was I almost typed in number 58, and I was like, wait a minute. No, even more than that, 85. Holy cow. Yes.
Good year, 85. I'm just going to put that out there.
Uh-huh. Well, for those of you tuning in or watching the recording for the first time, my name is TJ Zebel. I like to call myself a professional problem solver, which I also always have to follow up with, no, I don't know everything. But I'm really good at asking questions, and I've been around enough, I've seen enough, I've done a few things, and I have this ability to help people find solutions to their challenges. I also work with clients for depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD. I work with professional athletes for performance enhancement. And I also do corporate coaching because I found out that CEOs, CFOs, COOs, and OOOs, and all of them are still human. And people are like, well, when's the last time you ran a multi-million-dollar business? I'm like, I haven't. But the people that are running it are still humans. And I get to help them with the mental part. They know the business part. And I learn from them, and they learn from me. So it's a good trade-off. I also have a website, theTSWB.com. And yes, you're right, Elijah. They can afford to pay for my services. That is also a plus. And for those of you that want something free, I also offer a free 30-minute consult so we can see if my services are a fit and if you can afford them. It always cracks me up when people are like, well, I can't afford it. And I'm like, well, how much is it? Well, I don't know. I said, you don't even know what I was going to charge you, and you've already disqualified yourself. Wow, that's a business challenge mindset right there. But yes, free 30-minute consultation. That is your time to ask me questions, anything you want. Spend some time, chit-chat. And if you got some challenges, we'll talk about it. And if I'm a fit, I'll let you know. If I'm not a fit, I will also let you know that and do my best to help you find the best solution for the challenges. What else? Oh, YouTube etiquette, all the fun stuff because we are on YouTube Live. Hi, Mom. Go ahead and please click the subscribe, ring the bell, leave comments, hit the like, and all the above. Share with everybody and anybody, and invite people to join us on the live. I've noticed we've got a number of people on the on YouTube Live, but I had a couple of people, well, I don't know anything about the stuff you're talking about. I just like listening. I'm like, you don't even have to know how to spell NLP to join us here. Who's the expert? The person who's a half a step ahead of the others. And sometimes we need your question here on live to bring up the topic that all the people watching on YouTube or watching the recording want asked because we don't think to ask the question. So please join us. It's the same deal every week. The link is on my Facebook pages under TJ Zebel or TSWB Helps. And once you get the link once, It's the same one every week. Same bat time, same bat channel. I did not put the link in the Zoom, but we're working on that. I've got somebody who's also going to help me with time stamping the videos and filling in the topics on some of the videos that did not get filled in. So we're working on making the experience a little better. We've only got 85 of them to update right now, so we better get started before the job gets bigger. What else? Anybody got anything that they want to share from the last 7 days?
I had a really great, I've seen it a couple of times on Instagram, and it says, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And nothing changes if nothing changes. And it really resonated with me, and how important it is, the fact that we do consider ourselves agents of change, but also even when you were just talking about the investing in yourself. And we invest in our car, we invest in gas, we invest in food, we invest in clothing. And we don't think that, at least culturally, it's important to invest in ourselves. Like, oh, we'll do that later, or I don't have time for that. And I am absolutely a huge supporter of finding ways to invest in yourself, as in whatever you want to consider helping yourself, whether it's breath work, whether it is reading a book, whether it is expanding your mind and having these conversations, because truly that's what we do here. And I love it that when other people come in and they bring different questions, or they offer different insights from their experiences, it helps with that overall growth. And even right now, we are all investing in ourselves. And I think it's so important to continue to invest in yourself, because if you don't change within, nothing changes. And to really, the quote really resonated with me as to why it's so important to sit down and work on yourself and work on your own shit on a daily basis, just like we fold laundry, just like we brush our teeth, like we do it on a daily basis. And I used to think I would get to this point where I'd be like, oh, on a beach with a cocktail, I'm like, that'd be it. I'd be fixed. And it's not that I was broken. It's just that I continue to build upon what I've learned. And it's a constant evolution. So I really, really loved that quote. And it was really inspiring to keep finding ways to help yourself, to keep finding ways to make those changes that you might not love about yourself, and keep finding the ways to make those changes so that you can continue to love yourself even more.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. Very important. It sometimes sadly amazes me how some people are proud of the fact that they haven't changed. Or they'll be like, well, why are you still going to classes? Why are you still? Because I can. Because I'm not a tree. Nothing against trees, but I can't stand it here. Well, then you're not a tree. Move. Do something. Well, I don't know how to do that yet.
Super powerful word.
Yeah. The amount of things that you can change would astound you if you gave it a chance. When you see some people, where they've come from, what they've accomplished, and you see grandma in college and people are like, oh, why? Because she can. Why not?
And I find that people, when I tell people, like, I go to trainings or I go to classes, well, that's silly. Why do you do that? And if they don't understand, they don't understand. And it's really not worth trying to express to them why I find it important. And they brush it aside almost like they're too good for that. And it's rude. It's very, very rude to be so insulting to somebody that isn't doing something that they enjoy. And it's also, I find it also sad because they don't know what they don't know, and they're not even willing to possibly entertain even a little bit.
Yeah. And you are where you are because of every single choice you've made up to this point. And the amount of people that I've heard that want to have you listen to how terrible their life is. When you ask them, so what are you doing to change it? Complaining. All right, well,
that or they feel like they can't change. And then when you offer, like, would you like any help with that? Well, yeah, but then as you're offering help, they're just swatting it away.
Yep. The amazing people that can tell you 3 reasons each one of your solutions won't work. And I've dealt with many of them, and I'm finally like, you know what? You're right. You're screwed. There ain't nothing that's going to help you. They're like, well, why would you say that? I'm like, because I just gave you 17 solutions, and you gave me 3 reasons. Each one of every solution, you had 3 reasons it won't work. And if you're that dedicated to making sure that you don't get any change, guess what? You won't get any change. So, yep, you're screwed. Yes, Elijah.
Morning.
Morning.
So I don't really offer people help anymore. I do talk about what I do, and I do talk about the people I've helped.
Yep.
And I do talk about hypnosis, and I do talk about why I enjoy hypnosis and what I love about it and stuff like that. But I don't offer people help. I wait till they ask me for it. Because it actually works better that way.
Correct.
So sometimes, like if it's a friend of mine and they know what I do, and I kind of get that, oh, maybe they didn't realize that it could also work in this context, kind of thing, then I might. But if it's like a stranger who's just complaining, or someone who I don't know, I do talk about what I do. I do talk about what I love, and I do talk about why it's been really good for me and some of the people that I've helped. But I never offer it to them until they ask.
Yep.
I find it works better that way. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there.
Yep. And unfortunately, we also find out that the hardest ones for those of us in the industry to work with or help are typically friends and family, because they know what you do and they're like,
okay, so I have a whole bunch of rules when it comes to friends and family.
Of course.
A whole bunch of rules.
Yep.
I should go into them or not, but
well,
essentially it's like, I'm not going to be your therapist. I do it like a one-time thing, but I'm not going to be your therapist because that's going to change our relationship, and I like our relationship the way it is, and so let's just not do that. I can help you with this one thing if you're really insistent. I can help you with this one thing, but after that, no. And I'm going to treat you like a regular client, so you're going to have to pay me, and you're going to have to do this, and you're going to have to do that, because I'm not going to be your friend who's also your therapist. I'm not going to be your brother who's also, because that's just no.
Well, and I've also found out that no skin in the game, very little change. And didn't get a chance. Hey, Kevin, I want to say, hey, thanks for joining in. Appreciate you investing your time with us as always. We always welcome you here.
My pleasure.
Well, we're going to see if we can get through our 3 topics. Again, the 3 topics for this week: travel, guard your kingdom, and GoPro. Starting off with travel, those people that know me know that I've been beyond blessed to travel. I got to spend a year traveling around in Europe back in the day. Got lucky enough to get in with a invite-only travel club, which not only allowed me to go on many amazing trips, but it also introduced me to Dr. David Snyder, which is why I'm here with you guys talking about this anyway. But what I wanted to talk about was the benefits of travel, the health benefits, the ahas, the epiphanies, a lot of people think that rich people travel only because they have the money and the means to do it, and they miss the point of the mental health portion. Many studies have been done showing the benefits of travel. That's why Europeans have so much vacation time, because they've found out that the more that they can travel, the healthier they are, mentally and physically. And a lot of your top CEOs and all those guys, the CEOs I've worked with, I've also, how many trips do you get in? You need more. What they find is when they can get away from the phone, get away from the emails, get away from the meetings, blah, 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 things tend to click. And when they get back to the office, they are much more productive than when they were not taking the vacations. I know that there have been times that I've been tempted to just book a couple of long airline flights simply so that I had to sit in a seat with my laptop and get stuff done. Because there were a couple of projects that I was working on, and I got 4 weeks worth of work accomplished in one flight. Simply because it was, person here didn't want to talk. I'm like, okay, open the laptop, and the stuff just flowed because I didn't have cell service, I didn't have email, I had me and the laptop. I don't play a game, I'm not a gamer, so my laptop is business. The other part is when you're that far away, it allows your mind the freedom to look at things in different perspective. That's why I've had people look at me when they tell me they're going to go on vacation. I'm like, all right, when you go on vacation, smell the smells, see the things, taste the tastes, touch the buildings, know where you're at, feel where you're at, know that you are not home on purpose, mindfully. You'll be amazed at the difference in it. And like the little thing I touched on, it was last time or the one before, about eating, especially on vacation. Take the time to eat slower, to analyze what are the ingredients, how did they make it, so that your mouth can experience all that there is in the food. I promise you, it will taste different. Do you want to share anything, please?
So a couple of months ago, I went on vacation, and hilariously, I had a few worries about going on vacation and worried about all sorts of things, especially worried about coming away from work and all the opportunities that I thought I would miss and all the things that I thought were going to derail my structure. And in 2019, I went on a very, very awesome vacation. And then I hadn't been away for a long period of time until just recently. And I did not realize how vital it truly is to someone's well-being, because we can get so wrapped up in this and so wrapped up in, which you can't see is about 45 million crossed out lines, and so wrapped up in all this little crap that you can't even get clear on certain things. And when you get away from your structure, when you go on vacation, when you take that pause and really come out of it, you get a completely fresh new perspective on your entire life. And it is absolutely extraordinary. And I'm actually in a group, in like a 6 month or 8 month group, whatever the case may be. And one of the requirements that the leader is adamant about is a minimum of 8 weeks of vacation per year. And I probably would have passed out had I not been prepped. And if somebody had told me that in May, I would have been short of breath, sweating, and very uncomfortable at the thought of that. And now it makes such crystal clear sense to me, because we can get so wrapped up in, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this. And you really don't. You really can step away. And you should.
The amount of pushback that I've had from people of, well, I can't afford to. And I'm like, how do you know? How do you know? Have you checked out all of the travel clubs? Have you, I'm actually part of 2 different travel clubs at this point now. And they're invite only. So if you want to know about it, get a hold of me. I'll tell you all about it. But yeah, you're not going to find the deals online. But if nothing else, the stories, the pictures, something to talk about other than politics, the weather, and what your neighbor's doing. Build a life that you have the ability to talk about when you get to the years where everybody else is talking. And that comes straight from an amazing lesson that I learned from Grandpa Hugh McCorder in our small little town of 187 people in Minnesota. And everybody made fun of Hugh because, boy, Grandpa Hugh could tell you stories, and he's been everywhere, he's done everything. You just ask him, he's got a story for it. But he had the pictures to back it up. And one day he was telling me one of those stories, and I'm sitting there just, living the vision. And all of a sudden, about halfway through it, he kind of got quiet, and he said, do me a favor, live a life that is so full that when you get to be my age, you can talk about yourself and not what your neighbors are doing. And that really struck home with me, because after that point, I started listening to some of the people in town. And no offense, but some of them were proud of the fact that they had never left the state of Minnesota. But they could tell you what Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so were doing, and da-da-da-da-da. So back to the travel. Find as many different ways to travel as much as you can. And if you get the opportunity, get out of the country. Get to other countries. Get to notice how they live, how they eat, don't rely on what you see on TV. You'll be surprised. And try to get away from the touristy areas of the travel.
Yeah.
Get out in the country and get to meet the people that live there. When I was in France, I was down near Lyon and Bourg-en-Bresse, working on this century-old farm next to and they were pretty advanced. And then Robert took me over to a friend of his place that like 5th or 6th generation farm. And it was like stepping back in time 100 years. But it opened my eyes and brought me back. And travel is the one thing that you can invest money in that will make you richer every time. Any other input, ahas, epiphanies on that?
Well, now that I want to book a plane ticket.
I was just thinking of like goldfish and how the size of their container determines the size that they will grow to. So if you got a little bowl here, the goldfish are going to be like that big. But if you put them in a watershed, like they're going to turn into giants and they're going to eat small children.
Yes.
So
I actually saw that in France. No, it's literally somebody had thrown a couple of goldfish into the what do you call them? They're used to water the fields. So they've got all of these networks of channels and locks and everything. Mm-hmm. And they had to drain them out because they're doing something different with the field. They got to get all the fish. They pulled out a couple of goldfish, literally this big. Yeah. It's like, well, then show that to the cat. Mm-hmm. Anybody else got anything, questions, ahas, epiphanies before we move on to the next one? Yes, please, Lillian.
For those who have traveled, what kind of things do you notice? Or what's your favorite part about traveling?
Great question. Got travelers in here, so.
Yeah, so that's an open question to all of us.
Yes, yep.
So going back to the goldfish concept, obviously we're not going to be super huge unless we're eating at all the really ritzy restaurants. But as far as my mindscape, traveling around, because I was working Renaissance festivals in the US for 16 years. And so I was traveling all around the country. And then I was stuck on this circuit for 16 years. But then I had a little break at 2011 to 2013, and I was in Norway for 2.5 years, and had my brain kind of scrambled because of the MS, but I came to my senses. I didn't know where I was. I knew that I did not recognize the flag, and I couldn't understand anything anybody was saying, except you'd have like one or two words in a sentence would be like "kaffe." I was like, oh, well, I can get that, yeah. And but then I learned Norwegian, and so the learning the language, and therefore the culture, and being stuck in Norway for over 2 years, it just expanded my brain and my mind and just rocked my world.
Where were you at in Norway?
So I was in a place just about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours north of Oslo, but then I moved to a place called oh goodness, Lillestrum.
Uh-huh.
So I did some time in Lillestrum, and then a place called Venezuela, which is a place over in Finskugan, which is a large area that is in the southeast of Norway and goes into Sweden, and is populated traditionally, historically, by Swedes, Danish, or Swedes, Norwegians, and Finnish people. And so it had a whole monstrosity of a dialect, because the Swedish and the Norwegian, they are mutually intelligible. Finnish, not one lick.
Yep, I lived on the Hårdøngarf in a tiny little village called Nå, just north of Oda.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being there for Setnamai.
Yeah.
And there were people from at least 7 different countries in the town square. And I'm sitting there and we're partying like crazy, and they're all butchering the English language. But that was how they could all communicate. And I went, oh, I am the outsider. I'm the only one here who only speaks English.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else speaks at least 3 languages.
Right.
And it really struck me. I mean, I used to be proud of the fact that I could speak English, Minnesotan, and Drunkenese.
Right.
None of those helped me in Europe. Well, Drunkenese did, but that was because they butchered the English language, which is kind of like Drunkenese, and had a lot of body language.
Yes. Going and miming out and.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. That's super cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Anybody else, or is it time for squeezing in 2 more topics if possible?
I can tell you, like, my experience with going to Barcelona for 4 months.
Uh-huh.
I didn't learn any Spanish. Just like here in California, I just talk in English to people. And it was interesting. I have seen different places. And then I went to, before that I was in Bahamas. Also didn't learn any of their native language. And even when I was in Mexico, I didn't learn any language. And I really wanted to learn Spanish, at least like basic communication. And then but all these places were in like very special in their own way, and the culture. But then that same year, I went to Dominican Republic, and when I went to Dominican Republic, I stayed there for only 7 days, and I learned how to communicate because I had to. Because any other place I've been to, they spoke at least a little bit of language, English, and then I had no choice. I came back.
Interesting how that works, right?
I was able to say like few sentences and to respond, and because I was immersed in that, and that's just one of the experiences. There's when people travel, I think there's just so much you can talk about. But that was just maybe one thing that I wanted to bring up, how that language, at least for people who are lazy when it comes to that, like I was. I think the only thing is like if you really if people get in a culture where they have to learn and they have no other choice, then they're more likely to do so.
Or missing the opportunity. I met a guy that he lived in the LA area and spent a little over 2 hours a day in his vehicle in traffic, driving to and from work. And he said he got sick of talk radio. And one day he found a learn a new language CD set. And so he put it in and turned his drive time into class time, and eventually learned how to speak 9 languages fluently. And he was just doing it for fun. And in LA, you can pretty much find anybody that will speak any language because there's so many different cultural diversity in there. And eventually, somebody with, I don't remember what company it was, found out that he had this skill. They're like, you need to be an interpreter. He's like, well, do they pay for that? They're like, 9 languages? Yeah. And he looked into it and about tripled his income and got to travel and didn't have to drive in LA rush hour anymore. But he took advantage of downtime. And I come from a truck driving family, and I've told a number of truck drivers, I'm like, how many languages do you speak? And they look at me like, well, I'm in America. I speak English. Like, well, you got a lot of drive time. You should know at least 4 languages and probably how to. A lot of them had never thought of that. They just like listening to the radio or the CD or put a lot of minutes on their cell phone. So, and that can be our little segue into the next topic of guard your kingdom. Now, if you look at kingdoms and things of that nature, there's always some maintenance to be done. You got walls to keep up, you got plumbing, all of that stuff. All right, Kevin, appreciate you stopping in, man. But a lot of people, like we were talking about earlier, forget about the idea of having to work on themselves. which is all part of guarding your kingdom, along with learning energy and toxic people and things of that nature. I've got a number of clients doing the wait to date protocol, and one of them recently had an absolute full and she finally got it. She is the queen of her kingdom. She decides who gets to be on the kingdom, in the kingdom realm. She decides who gets to come inside the city walls. She gets to decide who gets close to the castle, who gets to come into the castle, who gets to sit at the head table, and what activities happen in the kingdom. And what happens outside of the kingdom isn't her circus, isn't her monkeys. And if people don't play by the rules, she's the queen. Off with you. Out. And she's building a kingdom that she loves to live in and rule. It is her kingdom. And I think too often we forget about checking in and doing a self-assessment. How is our life? Are we happy? Not that we have to be yay giddy every day, but like Lenora put out, if nothing changes, nothing changes. To understand what needs to change, you have to do an assessment. ABT. Always be testing. Always be testing. And like Savo deals with vehicles. If you're driving a vehicle, eventually you got to go out and you got to take a look at the condition. How are the tires? Got to change the oil every now and then. Change the filters. Sometimes it's time for an upgrade. Upgrade! Because you've outgrown the kingdom, you've outgrown the vehicle, you've outgrown your job, you've outgrown maybe a relationship. And the one thing that I tell people, it doesn't matter how you've known them, how long you've known them. There are family members that should not be allowed inside the city walls. Doesn't matter that they're family. In fact, some family members should be kicked out of the realm. Like, you are not allowed on the kingdom grounds anymore. Banished. And if that's what it takes to protect and guard your kingdom, then that's what it takes. And the harder I know it's harder for the people pleasers. Well, yeah, but they might not like me if I don't want to spend time with them. Yeah, but do you like you when you're around them? No. Then take a look at the census of the planet. How many people are on the planet? Build your own tribe. Yes.
I think one thing that you had pointed out a couple weeks ago, what's feeding your energy and what's stealing your energy. And especially, and I really had a very minor understanding of this a couple of years ago, especially in the work environment that I was in. I didn't realize, I just kept thinking I need to get out of this work environment, but I didn't realize how much it was impacting me. And I would even say, I would jokingly say, when I hit the door, like my energy just boom. And I didn't realize how much energy I was picking up from the people around me. And not even that I would spiral out and use the same language that they would use, because I knew enough to like, no, I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to put that out into the universe, but just that it would stick to you. And the people that are, when you get off a conversation, there are times you get off a conversation, you're completely energized and you feel so great. And it was such a satisfying conversation versus other ones where you just kind of feel foggy or wonky, something's off. And who's feeding you, quite literally, who's nurturing your soul and who's robbing from you or coming into the kingdom and helping it flourish, and who's blatantly stealing and cutting the flowers that you have now grown. And I had no understanding of it until I really started to reflect on what are the signals that I'm going into a stressful situation? What are the signals that I need to decompress from a stressful situation? And it's not stress as in like, I'm not in the military, somebody's not screaming at me, like, thank goodness. But just energetically, who's feeding that and who's stealing? Probably be the best ways to explain it. And I now have to prep myself going in, setting up those boundaries and saying, okay, this is not necessarily going to be the most exciting or the best time ever, but I can still have a good time and I don't have to pick up on this and prep myself, but also knowing how to resolve that as I leave the situation and then the next day and thereafter.
Fits right in there with, I wish I knew then what I know now when I was younger. There were a number of jobs that I had that, Mom, I love you, because I would call her up and we like to talk a lot, but there were a couple of times in my life where it didn't matter how cheery the conversation started. Eventually I was into, and I had so much negative energy in me from work and people. And one of them hit me hard when I told her I'd quit. She was like, good, because that place wasn't good for you. I could tell every time you called me. And it really stuck with me because I was like, wow, yeah. Now that I look back, every conversation I had with her had to have 15 minutes of venting, and I'm putting that energy on her. That's not fair either. So, Mom, you should have spoke up earlier, but I love you. But I have a lot of different talents, a lot of different professions that I could step into if I wanted to. And I find myself quite often looking at it going, yes, I could do that, but no. I could definitely work here, but no. I would rather invest in new talents if that's what my options are. And probably a little crazier than most people. I'm on profession 28 now. 28. But part of it is because I was addicted to, well, I still am addicted to, sleeping indoors and eating food. And I was never afraid to try something new. And some jobs I would maybe do again. Some jobs, no. But I was able to do it because one of my mottos was I was looking for a job when I got this one. In fact, one of my friends, her brother got a job. He got a killer job, and the way he got the job, he went to the place and said, "I want to work for you." They said, "Well, we're not really hiring right now." He goes, "Good, then find me something to do." And created his own job. He just showed up and was like, "No, I want to work here. I'll do something. I'll do anything. I got skills." And pretty soon they're like, "Wow, you do have skills." And he created his own position. And I think so many people are too, well, I was looking in the want ads. So was 7,000 other people. What kind of a job, and I've told a number of people when I'm helping them with this, I'm like, write down all of your skills, everything, anything you can think of. And stop thinking about a job that has a title that you've done before. Start thinking about where would you love to work at? I don't care if it's a water amusement park, if it's at what do you love? I love concerts. All right. What if you got a job? What if you learned how to run a spotlight and be sitting there following people on stage? I'm going to tell you, it's not a glamorous job. You're way up. If you're afraid of heights, maybe not your gig, but boy, you can see a lot of concerts. It's hard work. I met a guy that he set up lighting for concerts, and you bust your rump setting up for the concert, and then you got basically nothing to do while the concert's going on. So he would go up in the catwalk above the stage and have the concert right below him. He would just lay there on his stomach and watch the concert. He did that for 4 years. Yeah. He was like, I didn't make a whole lot of money, but man, did I see some cool stuff. I'm like, right on. I worked in Yellowstone for my internship for college, and it's just a seasonal job, and they've got dorm housing, and they provide you with food, and they clean your uniforms. And then you get a little bit of a check at the end of the month. And, a couple of people that were working there, college kids and stuff, they're like, doesn't pay for squat. I'm like, really? Really? Let me tell you a little something. I've lived on my own for a while now, a couple of years. You know what I found out? After I pay my rent and my food and everything, you know how much money I got left over at the end of the month? About this much. So this is kind of like life, but here we are in Yellowstone, and on our days off, we get to go hunting and well, not hunting. We get to go fishing and hiking, and you know, there are people that were photography buffs, and yeah, you're in Yellowstone all summer. So they're out there. And here we are, 5 minutes left, and I think I might have to just start only posting 2 topics. To give you a quick deal on GoPro. This was out of a business client. There's a book by Eric Worre called GoPro, and it was basically written for direct sale network marketing industry. However, I've been recommending it to people regardless of what industry they're in, because it teaches the fundamentals of relationship sales versus, hey, I've got this product on my shelf that I need to get sold. So, hey, you want to buy it? You want to buy it? You want to buy it? Come on, you can want it. You can want it. I know you don't need it, but it really looked good in your. Yes, that's what you need right there. We're gonna upsell, and I don't care if you really need it. What GoPro teaches is how to build the relationship, find the fit, build a team, and replicate, duplicate, because multiplication works much faster than addition. And in the direct sale network marketing arena, it was interesting that it was pointed out that the profession that makes the best sales people in direct sale network marketing, ironically, teachers. Because teachers take the time to build the relationship, explain the process, and teach the people how to do what they did. And then teach those people how to do what they did so that they can teach people how to do what they did. So that's my quick recommendation for, yes.
Did anyone else grow up with a less than positive experience with sales?
So of course.
I don't know how other people reframed it, especially given the nature that we are in. I've been reframing it over the years as that I'm being of service, because I don't want to be considered somebody that's constantly pushing on people. And it's wildly interesting how many different approaches people have and how many things will just end up in your inbox on LinkedIn, and people are just offering their services for such and such. And I don't know how to offer to people the work that I do other than sincerely and this is what I offer, without coming, I don't want to be associated with, so maybe that's why I'm very soft in my approach, because I don't want to be considered icky, would be the only way to explain it. So what are your approaches? How else are you guys, or what do you think of that? Not even that, what's your approach? I lied. I'm full of bananas. When you're offering your service, what are you thinking?
First thing that I want to do to help on the reframe, everything is sales, and we've been salespeople since we were born.
I get that a little bit.
When you wanted something from mom and dad, you had to sell them on the idea.
And I think of it as just asking, which also leads me to probably mislabeling it or labeling it differently.
And that's where sales is the combination of conveyance of information and fulfilling a need. But we've been doing it since we were born. Because as long as there's an exchange, sales is nothing more than an exchange of value. Some values are very easy to understand. Cash, direct, unquestionable value. Here's how much cash. We know that it all adds up, duh. And then you look at a product, and then it becomes perceived value. Market value is only what people are going to be willing to invest into that, whether it's a service, product, all the above. Back in the day before cash, you have 10 chickens, I have a goat. I will give you my goat for your 10 chickens. And then they had to decide, were 10 chickens worth a goat? If the guy already had 50 goats and only had 12 chickens, maybe not so much. So you're looking for the need, the balance, the trade out in the value. I'll be with you in just a second, Fran. But a good buddy of mine, his father taught him sales at the very lowest rudimentary level. You buy something for $1, you sell it for $2, because you have to keep the lights on and food on the table. And if the other person perceives it as a great value, then it's a win. College students were the hardest ones to get this through, especially in San Diego. I said, if you found a $300 Gucci purse on sale for $50, how much would you sell it for? Well, for $50, that's what I got it for. I said, then you're going to starve. It's worth $300. If you knew it was worth $300 and you wanted a Gucci purse and somebody sold it to you for $200, would that be a bargain? Well, yeah. What if you found out that they only paid $50? Well, then they screwed me over. No, they didn't. They paid their bills. Fran.
One of the things I've noticed with sales in my world is if you believe in your product, that sells itself automatically. If you are interested in the person and can paint them a picture of how this product will make a difference in their life, that sells the product. You don't have to do any work because it'll sell itself, or certainly go a long way. I've been doing private real estate sales and through to wholesale and retail selling. I haven't sold online. Yes, I have. But if you can get passionate and believe in your product, the job's mostly done, and you can even enjoy what you're doing much more. That's my cut on it anyway.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because there's believing in your product, your passion, and understanding your market. One deal I heard was, it's a lot easier to make $1 million by selling 1 million things for $1 than it is to sell one thing for $1 million, depending on where you are. If you're in a market like La Jolla, $1 million sales are not that uncommon. If you grew up where I did, $1 million sales are, you probably should find 1 million items for $1. So, but it's much easier, like you said, Fran, when you have a product that you are passionate about, that you can believe in, and they can hear it in your voice.
Selling something you don't believe in is really hard.
It's really hard, and it's a talent. It's a learned talent. I've met some guys and gals that they're just out to move product. Whether they like it or not, they're just out to move product, but they're professional at it, and they can find a niche for it. But you'll ask them, so do you own one of these? Or like, and that's in, the caveat in that. I would much rather, Sabo knows I've done used car sales, which if you ask a lot of the public, their perception of that industry is pretty low. But it is one of the higher respectable ones, because the amount of people that can afford, especially these days, to go out and purchase a brand new vehicle are pretty low. And so as a used car salesman, you're fulfilling a very strong need from somebody that can be reputable and honest enough to not sell you a problem. One of the things that helped me progress, and I got a pretty decent following at the car dealership I worked at, was I would ask enough questions and people would go, well, how about this car? I'd be like, no, you don't want that one. That's not a good fit for you. Well, what about this one? No, you don't want that one either. That one is this or that, and you won't like it. I wasn't there to sell them anything that I had on the lot. I wanted to sell them what they would be happy to own. Especially when you live in a community like I do, where everybody knows everybody knows everybody, but the word got out pretty quick that I was the one that they wanted to deal with, because I wasn't out to just sell anything to anybody. It had to be a fit. Even to the point of knowing the inventory at other dealerships and sending them over there, which totally flamed my boss. But I was like, then get better inventory. Can't find it. At least I sent them there. They were going to go there anyway. So, any other input, ahas, comments on that? Yeah, Savo.
About sales, I agree with what you shared so far, all of you guys. It's good input. there is something I would add on a couple of things. So first, when we sell things that we don't like, it is a skill, like you said, TJ. One time I met this guy from prison. He just got out of federal jail, and straight out he started selling things that he was doing identity theft. And he came to my dealership and he said, I have these cameras. Would have to order. They're going to be here in 7 days. Whatever story he created in his head. The story was really dumb, but the way in which he expressed that is that it was so convincing, because it was almost no flaws in terms of reading his body language. And I asked him, I said, I know you're lying, because obviously I've seen people do identity theft, but if I was to buy these cameras, let's say we make a deal, would you tell me, how are you doing this? How are you making this story up? And he said that he spent 5 years in federal prison reading all the books on lies and how to lie. And he said, well, if I can all sum it up in a nutshell, it would be, I believe in my own lies, he said. And and so one of the things that I've started to realize, he had a very miserable life. And in fact, that was back then when I was putting the camera system in my new building, and he said, okay, I said, give me a ride. And just this camera system it's over $12,000. He sold it for $500. So obviously he was doing something, but I didn't want to get deeper into that. I gave him a ride, and then he was very afraid. He was looking for cops, which means he was probably already, they were looking for him, and he just got out of jail. So this is an extreme example of someone who is living a very painful life, full of fear, and probably being on drugs. And I think the reason why this happens is because whenever people have a parted out personality, to where they say, oh, I want to trick someone into something. I don't believe that, but I'm going to pretend to be something else. Yet in order for them to believe in their lies, like this expert on that, this guy, they have to become someone else. And it's one thing if you become something you want to become, you feel good about it, but then you have another part of you that knows the truth. And so there is a major conflict. Whenever we have conflicting belief, it's like being an intersection and being stopped, pulled back, and we don't go any way. So I think that's very painful for people to actually pretend to be something they're not. So let's say that we assume now, according to Lenora's question, that it's mostly, Lenora, just to make sure I understand you better here, you're sort of asking how to, you don't want to come off too salesy. Is that right? So when you sell, you do want to make sure that you offer your service to people, but at the same time, you don't want to be pushy, right? Okay, so that if we do really feel that we deserve, I think that's what it comes from, because everything that you have learned, I have learned, DJ, Elijah, and all of us here, is we've been through many hypnosis seminars, and I'm sure many NLP and different. So here we learn how to communicate, how to use body language, how to move, how to anchor, how to use hypnotic language. Now, all of this, if we see it as a game to better ourselves and basically to convey the message. So to me, TJ mentioned convincing. So I think that's true. And also convincing happens simply by conveying the truth inside of you. And then it's not just that you live good and peaceful life, but you can really sell better than anybody else, because there's no blips on the radar. You're fully what you present. So and being proud of who you are. I think this is there was this doctor who was running a marathon to raise money for kids with cancer, and he ended up last. And he was very proud when he finished the race. And they said to him, "Why are you proud? You finished last." And he said, "No, I finished first in the category of doctors who are raising kids for raising money for kids with cancer." So just knowing your worth, starting with that, and just letting there's no need for any of us to share any of the techniques and skills. We can talk about it until the morning, then this whole webinar would be about that. But your unconscious, I believe, already has the learnings and the understandings to apply, as long as there is this knowing inside that what you do is right, and then everything else is just a game.
Awesome.
And I'd like to add about how what Sava was saying, in believing in your own lies and becoming somebody else, relates back to the relationships situation that TJ was talking about initially. So it's kind of funny how it all links in.
Yes. And when you guys brought that up, one of my squirrels dropped by and brought up the concept of posture. When I had my photography studio, I didn't have near the posture that I should have, could have, wished I had. I was so hungry and afraid of not being able to meet my monthly quota that I would take any project. And I was so afraid that if I raised my prices, I wouldn't get the sales. And you read the book, The 4-Hour Work Week, and it's not about finding a job that you only have to work 4 hours. It's knowing your worth and making sure that you're at the upper level of the market for your value. Too many of us are so worried that we make sure that we're at the middle or at the lower end of our market so that we could make the sale easier. And that goes right back to, if you want to sell one thing for $1 million or 100 things or 1 million things for $1. Well, the 1 million things for $1 seems a lot easier, except the amount of time and energy you have to invest in getting each product sold. Yes, Sabo.
So another thing that I've noticed is just knowing your worth also means, especially for me, I've been dealing with this a lot, and I got to the point where I am way better than I used to be, and there is still mistakes that I make in terms of who I hire and who I give an opportunity or a second chance, and not just that, but also when I say hire, not my employees, but also my customers, who I do business with. And here's this experiment. This was done in 1930s. A scientist, Kellogg, he took chimpanzee and his son, and he raised them together. And he was curious if chimpanzee is going to learn some of the behavior of a young boy. And yet what ended up happening is that chimpanzee learned very little, but his son started to behave very much like chimpanzee. And so this is, to me, one of the things that I learned from David is that it really helped me move through this my desire to always help people, and no matter what, believe in people even when they don't believe in them. And that sometimes it brought a lot of heavy energy on me, my business, my family. So I started to look back on what I learned from David, when David told me that make sure they are a good fit for you. And when I heard him say that, it sounded like a sales strategy. And then when I started to really embody that, I started to say, okay, well, this person is not there yet. Not everybody's in the same grade. People have to go through the grades. And if I bring him in, whether to do work as a mechanic or body work, it's gonna drain my energy. And that's that. And then sometimes same thing happens with customers. They come in and they try to just one of those people, TJ, you probably have, they come in and they want a discount on fees, on financing, on everything, and you give them everything. You tell them, this is all you get, and take it or leave it. And of course they take it, and then they go, can you put some gas, can you detail the car, can we do this and that? Oh, the car doesn't have owner's manual. One of those people is like, someone told me that it's more important to learn how to fire fast than to hire the right people. So knowing your worth basically to me also means knowing when to cut people off and say enough is enough.
Yep. One of the sayings that I heard that goes along with that is, just because you need business bad, you don't ever need bad business. I'll say it again. Just because you need business bad, you don't ever need bad business. And I've been there. That you look at some of the stuff and you're like, I would have been better off to not make the sale than to put up with what I had to put up with for that little bit of profit. Great question.
Knowing your worth, I like that. I like that question. Like, how do you reflect? And I think without reflection, it's really hard to know your worth, because most of the things we learn retrospectively as we look at what has happened. So I don't know if someone else wants to answer first. I think it's
I just had a little know your competition. Get around, travel, meet people, especially in the industry, and find out where you sit, where you rank, what you know, what they're charging. I again, back to my photography studio, I was the most affordable professional photographer in our area. That was my fault. Had I rose up to believing in myself to charge competitively along with the others, I would have also probably built up the perceptive value from the other people. One of the things they'll say, if you got an old couch and you want to get rid of it, you put it out by the curb with a sign that says $100 or best offer, or $50 or best offer. And the worst thing you can do is set it out there with a sign that says free. Nobody will take it. I know. Took care of college houses.
When you guys think about, when you think about knowing your worth, and I don't know if this is maybe the culture or part of the purpose of being here and trying to figure out your own value and your own worth, what are some of the things that come up? What kind of questions do you ask yourself? Like, I am worth investing my energy into, I'm worth investing my time into, or I am worth other people investing their energy or time into?
The first question, I think, let's see if we can connect this with sales really briefly. One of the things that 6-month-old babies do is that they learn how to mimic the smile, and when they see a person who smiles at them, they change their state and they become more open. So that's one of the things that whether you do sales on the phone, whether you post videos, and I've seen, Lenora, you do that pretty well. So also asking that question in a good state. I think that going back to how TJ asks questions and affirmations, that I think that would probably bring better responses, at least within me. Also, presupposes that there is such a thing as self-worth. Like, I would first ask, what is that? Because if you say the first part of the question is if I am worth investing in myself, I think you are the only person that is worth investing for you. It's like the masks go down in the airplane, you put one on yourself, and there is many different examples of that. So I think, yes, you're the most important, like David says, you're the king or the queen of your own neurology, and you're in charge, because alternative really sucks for letting someone else be in charge, and then all kinds of bad things can happen. So yes, of course, that we are worth. Now the second part of the question is, are the other people, how do we know we are worth for them to invest? Well, I think just reflecting, like we talked about earlier, and noticing the results, and really sometimes journaling, I think, about what we have actually done. And I have this little box where I keep all my sort of, it's first I had it in a file, in like a secure folder in my phone. Every time I would receive a message from my client, every time I would receive a positive feedback, a review, I would just save it there. And then there was so many, and then I just decided to just make it smaller and print them out. And so sometimes I would just look at it, and that would remind me of, how whatever you focus on, they say that's what expands. And that would remind me of the work I have done. And I would look, oh, if I was able to do that like 7 years ago when I was just clueless, I can probably do a lot better job now. So that works for me.
One thing I'm going to throw in there quick: avoid the pitfall of, well, I wouldn't pay that much. I did that for way too many years. Well, you should be charged. People told me, I had homeowners that told me that I was charging way too little. They're like, you should be charging 3 times as much. And I'm like, well, I would never pay somebody to come over and do that kind of work for me. Because in my mind, it was easy to do. And if it's easy to do, then why should I have to pay somebody that much to do what I can do? And it was a incorrect way of looking at it. And it kept me far below market value. And one of the things that Dr. David pointed out, and it's true enough to be true, the $50 an hour client is a lot harder to work with than the $200 an hour client? And
Well, I'm going to jump in.
No,
And
I was just going to say, and even if they were equal, you have to work 4 times as long with the $50 an hour client to match what the $200 an hour client is. But I'm sorry, Frank, go ahead.
look, there's wonderful insights happening here. And I mean, finding your self-worth is such a subjective thing. And unless you get feedback from other people, how do you know? I mean, you have to be the most important person in your universe because you're all you've got. But if you don't have reflection, how do you know? And it seems to me that if you can see the reflection in other people, that you've made them feel good, that you've given, that they can appreciate you, that you can see it, like Savo's amazing file of good things that he keeps to remind him. We all need to remind ourselves, and whether it's on paper, on computer, or in your memory, seeing the results of what you've actually done does give validation. Though we shouldn't need it, but we do because we're human. And unless you get the outside reflection back, how are you going to know? Which is, again, so important why you choose the people in your kingdom, as TJ was saying, that if you're hearing people say not good things about you, if you're mixing with people who don't give you positive feedback, how are you going to feel better about yourself and make other people feel better about themselves and add value to their lives? So, you know, getting out of those sorts of toxic situations is enormously important for self-worth, probably the most important thing, in my opinion.
Savo.
I've noticed, guys, one of the things I'll share with you now about sales, you can probably never read anywhere because I don't think that it doesn't sound nice to say this, but it's so true. One thing I've noticed, whether I'm selling cars or whether I'm selling sessions, is that you really want to know how to get the most money out of people. So you want to know, and this is, I'm going to explain this, what your settling point is. Continue the negotiation because you know you're worth more, yet you have your settling point, and sort of figure out where their settling point is. Whether you do, whether I do business not just when I sell vehicles, but also when I purchase vehicles. And sometimes we have something called arbitrations. And so I buy wholesale from another dealer, and then there's a problem, and then I know how much I can fix that for, but also there is a moment where I want to see and what's worth for them and where can we settle. But okay, let's go to context of talking to clients specifically. One of the things that we do is, like TJ I think said another day, it was a couple of weeks ago, there has to be a stake in the game, or how did you say, TJ? There has to be,
You got to have some skin in the game to make it worth it.
something like that. Yeah. Excellent. So some skin in the game. So skin in the game is going to be different for different people. So I was talking to a friend of mine who she works with celebrities. She just worked with the president of Libya, I think. And different people pay her differently, and so I was saying how I do free seminars and how I do free stuff, and she says, I would really like you to come and present at this event and you have to understand you need to charge more. And so one of the things that I learned from this person is that it's really getting the most out of every single client as much as you can, just like I was doing in car business. And that's why I'm doing so much better in that business than personal development business. Well, because in personal development, I feel like just giving it, that's just that's just the purpose. So we had this conversation. So I had a good point. I said, she said, well, I want to make as much money as I can so I can, help animals and, shelters and this and that. And I said, my way of helping is just giving this for free, which does make sense. But also one thing that I feel I can do better is just getting as much of every client as I can, so they have more skin in the game, and they are able to change. It sounds so simple, but yet what this brings me back is I talked to another person who was doing so well in coaching business, and she says to me, she told me about her model of how she does it and how she's capable of making so much. So she said that she sells packages. And then this whole new idea occurred to me that I started to do now is I charge now only $100 for the first session, which usually consultation is free anyway. But if you call it a session, you see if they're a right fit for you, and then you can always do something other than just intake form and understanding. So I'm just going to be really quick. What I learned from her from this point, I've been talking for a while, so forgive me. Just want to convey this message here. She said to me that she charges.
We're loving it, Savo, so do not worry.
Thank you. $100 for a session, and so as soon as they're in, she says she usually does that one in person, but obviously Zoom is an option as well. And then she sells packages. And this, to me, first when I heard this from her, I was like, oh, that's so sneaky. But then later I thought that this is fair, because in the first session, she knows who the person is. She sort of knows how much money they make, what their parents, who their friends are, right? And then she goes, I charge everybody different. I just get a sense of what is. I said, that's so smart, because it's true. If you work with a millionaire, you are going to make him, maybe $1 million, but if you work, and so your sessions are worth, maybe 100,000. But if you work with someone who doesn't have any, that's completely fair to sell them $100 a session, if it feels right for you, that you want to contribute that way. And so that's how I changed my model of, oh shit, this is going to be on YouTube. It's all right. It's for you guys. So that's my new model of, and I think it's really fair, because everybody deserves to pay. There is a group I go to. It's a men's group. And, some of us decide to contribute more. It's like they say, $20 a month is a recommendation, but, some people give $500 a month and some people do $5 a month. So I think that's fair. I used to think it would be fair if it's same rate to everybody, but it's also, some people you're going to, like I said, help make millions, and some people are just going to be pennies, or I don't know, maybe make them feel better, whatever the thing is. But yeah, being flexible. Flexibility is power. The most flexible person in the room has the most power.
That's so linking the value of what you're giving to the skin in the game. That, different people are in different situations. What represents something that they feel that is value giving to, exchanging for you, and you're giving this service. What one person can afford is very different from what another person can afford. And so it's kind of a sliding scale, that somebody that's a big effort to pay an amount for your services, whatever their income, it gives them more value in your services as well.
Yeah.
And a number of people know that I don't always charge for the full amount of time that we've been in, online, whatever. And I'll tell my clients, I charge for the time that I'm doing my specialty, but I enjoy chatting with you as well, because it's an important portion that builds rapport. the deeper the rapport, the easier it is for me to get change work. But I don't want to charge you for the time that we're sitting there chatting like good old friends. The clock actually starts when the gremlin pokes his head out and I go, oh, what was that? And we start getting change work going on. It also frees up enough money for them so that they don't feel like they're so nervous coming in going, oh my gosh, we better get started right away. And they've got that nervous energy. They know that they can get started. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? Oh, your dog had puppies. That's awesome. Okay. And then we get started. So it's another little way of setting up for more success, especially in the work that we're doing that is relationship build, rapport build, to be able to get in and be agents of change. Does that make sense?
Can I add my strange structure of charging that because of the time constraints, and once I've got somebody opening up and I think we're getting somewhere, I don't want them to feel, oh, it's going to cost me another X amount if I spend more time expanding on this. I actually have my big charge at the beginning and then say, after this time period, I will be charging at a lower rate, and a lower rate still, depending on, if we need to continue to get the job done, that the main charge is in the beginning section. And then if it goes on, I still charge, but I charge at a lower rate so that they don't feel constrained by money to continue. Don't know what other people think of that.
My favorite part about all of this, it shows again how easy or how important it is to analyze and get in touch with how different people are doing it, how people are setting up their businesses so that you can personalize it. And when you personalize it, it makes it even easier for you to posture with clients. Like I was talking about with the photography studio, I was working so much in a scarcity mindset. But when I basically retired and I had people still wanting my services, pulling me out of retirement, I'm like, all right, fine. Here's the way it's done. This is what I charge. This is how it's going to be done. You're going to do it this way. We're going to do it this way. We're going to do it this way. One of us has done hundreds and hundreds of weddings. A couple of us have maybe attended a few. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, wow, why couldn't I have done that when I started? It would have made it so much easier. But I was so afraid of losing sales. And even with like we do here, when I do my consult and stuff like that, I'm at, here's how I do it. Here's what we're going to be looking for. If you're looking for somebody that has this particular style, I don't do that style. I do this style. I get my change work. I've got a lot of success stories. This is how I do it. And they're like, oh, okay. But it's having that posture of knowing that you know what you're doing. This is what I charge. This is what I offer. If it's a fit, we'll go forward. If it's not, no problem. We'll find you somebody that can do it the way that you need, but I'm not going to bow down and change my ways and go against my ethics simply because I need your business.
Good job, man. Yeah, that's the key. That's the key.
And that leaves us 15 minis left, which means we've got time for another topic and questions. And I know some of you have questions you've been writing down. I've seen the books. So what do we got? What's another topic we can throw out tonight and feed the masses?
I have a very good question. I think it's a very good question.
It is.
At least a self-reflection question. I don't know if it wants to be broadcasted. So it says, what doing would I be doing if I was being the greatest impact in the world?
Read that again so that people that just went, wow, can really let it sink in.
Buzz in my hair. What doing would I be doing if I was being the greatest impact in the world? Did not come up with that.
All of us are like,
Right? It's one of those that to definitely write down and you know, even as you're going throughout your day, if you're acknowledging that you're being the person that you want to be, what doing would I be doing?
I'm almost embarrassed to say I'm already doing it, and or pretty much.
Don't be embarrassed. Be absolutely, amazingly proud of that fact, because too many people are not.
That is beautiful, Fran.
So surprised when I actually sit down and think the answer, and I'm really enjoying all the things that are happening, and yeah, I could adjust them a little bit, but it's kind of fun, and it's almost scary to see, you know, I am a powerful person. I am actually making an impact in the world, and it'd be too scary to do it any bigger than that, I think. But you know, little old me, I'm doing stuff. I'm being who I need to be, and
Love that, Fran.
I'm sure I can do it better, but it's cool. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out so I can see it.
Too often people aren't afraid of failure. They're afraid of what they can accomplish. It's been proven too many times. They live small because they're afraid of how big they could be. And one of the great parts about that question is it's so personal. I mean, my father, blue collar worker, truck driver in a small town, but at his funeral, I found out just how big of a dent he put in the universe in his very own way. You don't have to be Gandhi or Mother Teresa to be able to put a beautiful dent in the universe and affect people's lives and change things for the better, as long as your intention is to constantly be better than you were before and leave the world a better place than you found it.
And that's what happens if you're a quiet achiever. And everybody here is, in their own way, a quiet achiever. And you don't realize your own greatness and what impact you have on me and everybody else you interact with.
Yep. You keep growing.
So thank you.
You bless us in ways that you probably take for granted too much, and we'll just make sure that you keep knowing it.
I sometimes need reminding when I look at my dog and see myself in my dog's eyes. My dog thinks I'm perfect. That's cool.
That's one of the best things about dogs. Nothing against cats, but you can leave the house, get to the car, realize you forgot your keys, you come back in the house, and your dog is like, you're back, you're back, you're back, you're back, you're back, you're back, you're back. And the cat's like, what? Really? Really? You're cutting into my time, man. Or the other one, put a dog and a cat and your wife in the trunk of a car for an hour. Open the trunk and notice 3 very distinct, different reactions. Dog's like, hey, hey, where you been? Where you been? Where you been? Where you been? Cat's like, about time. And the wife is like, you're dead. Why don't you just go to sleep? Funny boy. That gives us 9 minutes to contemplate that one. Or what else we got?
I'd like to hear everybody else answer Lenora's question, including Lenora.
I was thinking about what is that people really need more of, and then I thought about peace as probably that state of mind that people lack. And then I noticed, as I was like doing some classes on meditation and yoga, how people were breathing, people were getting in this wonderful state. And I later that night, when I reflected, looked back, I realized that that was one of the things that I could do more and have more impact. When I mean impact, I mean a positive impact. And there's all kinds of different people in this world. One time, okay, this is personal. I'm gonna share this. Yeah, too personal for YouTube. I'm gonna stop there. So let Lenora share.
One time at band camp.
What?
He said this one time at band camp. It's from a movie.
Oh, yeah.
From American Pie, like circa early 2000s.
No, go ahead.
What I find is sometimes I am being the person that I want to be, and other times I am not being the person that I want to be. And I think TJ's metaphor of who's on stage is something that's extraordinarily powerful for me, because it can flip very quickly. And when it flips, I'm not being the person that I want to be. But the nice thing is that I'm having a deeper mind-body connection that says, like, you are being the person you want to be, and you can listen to this guidance, and you can trust this that is coming through for you. And I know I had mentioned a couple of times, and I definitely mentioned it to Linda, that trusting myself was something that had always been a challenge for me. And I grew up in a place that I would constantly second guess. Like, I would make a decision. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? So I really built a very strong foundation of not knowing how to trust myself. And it was just very chaotic. So in learning, I had to learn, period, how to trust myself. And that's something that is ever ongoing. And as I'm able to trust myself, I'm able to notice, yes, I am being, and no, I'm not being. And yes, I can move this way. And yes, it's okay to use these strategies. And a lot of giving myself permission to be who I want to be and not for some reason feel guilty or feel shameful for it, or to feel bad about telling people how I can help them, and thinking somehow that that's selfish or greedy or icky. It all ties together.
And isn't that awareness a richness in itself, that you are looking at your life and noticing, whereas so many people just want to be in a routine of comfort and no pain, so they numb themselves. Everyone here is living a much richer life because we are noticing, and noticing the bad times as well as the good times. It's the seasoning, you don't necessarily have to like everything all the time. You need the contrast, you need the variety. I need the variety. So, well done. And even the awareness of second guessing yourself and being aware that you're aware.
I love the way you phrased all of that, Fran. I love the language you used.
One of my clients also came up with, along with the protocol of who's on stage, of asking the question, how would my higher self deal with this? What would my higher self think about this? And using that as the where the bar is, raising that bar up to a level and asking instead of how should I handle this, how would my higher self handle this? And she said the answers that are coming down has changed her life into a direction where she is so different in all the best ways. And she's not reactionary nearly as much as she ever, even stuff she used to be afraid of, like she didn't like driving at night. And she said, how would my higher self handle this? She's like, you drive all the time. You know the road. Your car is in great shape. Your headlights are good. You're fine.
I love that, TJ. And even, when the message back is, you're doing okay, keep on doing it, is cool.
Because that's who she wanted on stage. When you're the writer, the director, the lead role, the editor, all of the above to your movie, and you're trying to figure out what line to put on next, who better to ask than your higher self? And that brings us back to that TikTok bring down time where I get to spend a couple of minutes graciously, as always, thanking you guys for investing your precious commodity, your time, which I always say I cannot give back to you. So I am truly honored that each time you guys choose to take time out of your day, out of your life, and spend it here on this platform so that we can come up with things to help not only us, but those that are watching and those that are going to be watching the recording, and for Savo, bearing your soul and putting out things that, you guys are all sharing stuff that you don't have to. But we know that we do it in the belief that somebody out there is going to get benefit from it. And so I thank you and hope that the next 7 days are awesome and amazing and blessings, and look forward to seeing your beautiful faces in another 7 days. So go out in the world and make it a better place and be nice to each other. Thanks,
Thank you,
Kat.
everyone. Thank you, TJ.
You're welcome.
Hey, everybody. Jay.
Lenora, if you're still there, I wanted to tell you something, but I didn't want to say, and just within the sessions, for the sales, for the question that you asked, I feel there is a lot. I feel like there is a lot of this sort of belief that.
Hold on one sec. You're still live on YouTube, honey.
Oh, it's okay. No, just we can still go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as long as it's okay with you. Just my perspective on this, because it was your question and I stopped. I didn't respond. I noticed that there is this. Maybe I'm wrong about this, okay? But I feel there is this feeling of like I need to sell. I need to go to them and offer something. And I just wanted to say that also, like, one of my understandings that helped me a lot is just, that saying that you don't have to dim your light to make someone feel better, but just shine your light and allow other people to be inspired by that. So for me, that also translates into sales. Just you be you and offer but not in a direct way. In fact, in an indirect way, through stories, through metaphors, through stories of your previous success, and let those stories be true stories. Feel that, and then yes, offer that to wide variety. And that's what it says in the Bible. That says that some seed will fall out on the sand, and some seed will go certain different ways, and the seed will die. But some of those seeds will go on the fertile ground, and because of those seeds that fall on the fertile ground, they will